Rain sluiced down from the artificial sky, streaking the neon signs of Cerulean Port into smeared rivers of color. The streets hissed with the tongue of ozone and industrial runoff, a foul perfume that clung to Cade Mercer's skin as he trudged along. His boots, cracked and worn from years of marching in better days, squelched in the puddles as if mocking each step. Once he had walked in cadence with proud soldiers of Earth's interstellar defense corps. Now he drifted like flotsam through the galaxy's gutters, ribs hollow from hunger, hair plastered against his gaunt face. Pride had been the first thing stripped from him after his discharge. The uniform had gone next. Dignity? That had taken longer to bleed away. But tonight, even that felt like it had washed down the gutter with the rain. Ahead loomed the moon quartz, its crystalline facade glowing like a beacon for the wealthy and powerful. The elite of half a dozen star systems drank and laughed inside, their voices carrying faintly through the triple-pane windows. The place pulsed with light, its entrance guarded by two massive draconian bouncers whose scales gleamed with oil. Cade's stomach nodded as the aroma of roasted off-world spices wafted from the vents. He had not eaten in 3 days. His body trembled with hunger, but he knew better than to approach. Humans rarely crossed the threshold, except to scrub floors or serve drinks. His kind were tolerated only as a necessary labor caste, relics of a once fierce species that had lost its place in the order of things. He turned to leave when a side door hissed open. A tall figure emerged, carrying a gleaming case that seemed to glow faintly in the rain. His skin shimmered blue, luminous in the half-light, and his silver eyes reflected the neon with an almost liquid depth. Cade recognized him instantly. Theron Lux, the Xenophone Master. Even a human beggar knew that name, the alien whose music was said to draw tears from stone-faced diplomats and make hardened mercenaries dream of home. Cade swallowed, throat dry. Desperation overpowered sense. "Excuse me," he rasped, stepping forward. His voice cracked, unused to speaking. Theron paused, eyes widening faintly at the sight of the ragged human blocking his way. Cade forced the words out. "Can I play for food?" For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then Theron laughed. The sound was crystalline, like the instrument he carried, and it drew the attention of passing patrons. A cluster of aliens slowed, amusement sparking in their eyes. A human beggar daring to ask such a thing, it was comedy. "You play the Xenophone?" Theron asked, his tone dripping incredulity. Cade straightened, feeling every scar etched into his body, every humiliation behind him pressing down. "I can play," he said, voice firm despite the tremor in his gut. The laughter spread through the gathered crowd, a chorus of disbelief. "Let him try." Someone jeered. "It will be worth the embarrassment." Theron's silver eyes glittered with mischief, and at last he inclined his head. "Very well, human. Follow me." The crowd parted, more eager for spectacle than mercy. Cade trailed Theron into the moon quartz, heat and perfume enveloping him. Conversation faltered as aliens turned, curious, scornful, hungry for entertainment. On stage, a Xenophone sat upon a pedestal, all graceful arcs of crystal tubes and resonance chambers, a thing of beauty and wealth. Theron gestured with a flourish. "This instrument is worth more than you will ever see in your lifetime. But he claims he can play it." Snickers rippled. Cade ignored them. He lowered himself onto the bench, the surface humming faintly beneath his palms. He closed his eyes. At first, nothing. Then one note, trembling but pure, unfurling like a tear suspended in the air. The jeers stilled. Cade let the hunger, the exile, the aching loneliness rise through him, pouring into the instrument. The Xenophone responded, shaping his pain into sound. The melody stumbled at points, imperfect as his broken life, yet it carried a weight the audience had never heard. Raw, human emotion, untempered by breeding or training. It spoke of nights under alien skies, with no home to return to, of the sharp taste of shame, of pride long abandoned but not extinguished. When the final note faded, silence hung heavy. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. Cade opened his eyes. Alien faces stared back, some with moisture tracing down cheeks unused to tears. Thurin stood frozen, skin pale with astonishment. The human beggar who had asked to play for food had given them something no master's technique ever had. Cade rose slowly, throat tight. "Food?" he asked simply. And in that moment, he was no longer just a beggar. A spark of dignity had returned, carried on a note that still lingered in the hearts of those who had heard it. Cade sat on a weathered bench in Merchant Square, the artificial sun of Cerulean Port casting a pallid glow over the mosaic of alien faces flowing past. 3 days had passed since he had dared to step onto the Moon Court stage. 3 days since the sound of his hunger had been transmuted into music that left nobles weeping and skeptics hushed. He still wasn't sure how it had happened. He had stretched the credits thrust into his hands, long enough for a shower, a second-hand shirt that didn't cling to his ribs, and 3 meals that had eased the hollow ache in his stomach. But beneath the veneer of small comfort, he remained what he had always been since the war, a man without a place. He hunched forward, elbows on his knees, watching vendors shout prices for off-world fruit, polished metals, counterfeit jewelry. The crowd moved around him like a current, most giving him a wide berth. Even clean and fed, he was still human, and on Cerulean Port, that meant second class. He was lost in thought when a melodic voice cut through the din. "By the twin nebulae, it is you." Cade lifted his head. Thurin Lux approached, his azure skin gleaming like sapphire under the square's lights. Beside him moved someone who caught Cade's breath in his chest. She was Argentian, unmistakable in her silvery skin that shimmered like polished metal, and eyes so vividly green they seemed lit from within. Her steps carried a dancer's grace, liquid and unhurried, and though she wore a simple traveling suit, it hugged her figure in a way that made her seem sculpted from starlight. "I told you it was him," she said, her voice soft but resonant, a bell note that cut through Cade's guarded shell. She studied him as though she could see the marrow of his bones. Thurin smiled. "This is Linsa, my most promising student. She has been fascinated since she saw the recording of your performance." "Recording?" Cade's tone sharpened. He stood, jaw tightening. "You recorded me?" Thurin shrugged, utterly unrepentant. "Public venue. Besides, you should be thanking me. Your melody has spread across 3 systems already. You are something of a celebrity." Cade's stomach churned. Fame was a luxury he had neither wanted nor asked for. He hadn't played for glory. He had played because he was starving. "I didn't ask for that," he growled. "No," Thurin countered, amusement flickering in his silver eyes. "You asked for food, and you received much more." Linsa stepped closer, her presence somehow softening Cade's irritation. "You're angry," she observed, tilting her head as if cataloging him. "Your kind wears emotions so openly. It's refreshing." Her words were neither mocking nor condescending. They were curious, genuine, and that was enough to unbalance him. Cade found himself staring into those emerald eyes longer than he should have. He swallowed and forced his voice steady. "Why are you here?" "Because," Linsa said, "you played the xenophone in a way I've been trying to master for years. Emotion without technique is chaos. Technique without emotion is empty. You carried both." Cade folded his arms across his chest. "I'm not interested in being anyone's novelty act. The human who can play alien music. I played because I was hungry. That's all." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "Then play for me. Not for an audience, not for credits. Just for me. Cade hesitated. Her nearness unsettled him. He could smell her faintly something like cinnamon mixed with the sharpness of rain on metal. Against his better judgment, he nodded. Linza's smile brightened. Good. My apartment isn't far. She turned to Theron, who watched them with a knowing gleam. I'll leave you too, Theron said. His voice dropped as he glanced at Linza. Remember what I said about human physiology? A blush tinged her silver cheeks, subtle but unmistakable. Yes, Professor, Cade frowned. What was that about? Nothing important, Linza said quickly, taking his hand in a gesture that felt at once bold and intimate. Will you come play? Linza's apartment was a spire of glass and silver perched above the bay, its walls alive with shifting light from the city below. The place smelled faintly of ozone and something floral, subtle, and refined. Cade followed her inside, his boots leaving damp prints on the pristine floor. Everything about the room spoke of wealth-smooth reflective surfaces, furniture sculpted in elegant curves, art suspended as if it floated of its own will. He felt out of place instantly, a stray dragged in from the gutters, but his eyes locked on the instrument that stood near a panoramic window. Smaller than the xenophone he had touched at Moon Quartz, it was still beautiful. Crystalline arcs, tubes of translucent alloy humming with latent resonance. It shimmered faintly under the city lights, as though waiting to be played. It was my mother's, Linza said quietly, catching his stare. For the first time, her voice carried a note of pain. She was Theron's teacher before the Hive Wars. She never returned from the front. Cade nodded, understanding more than he could put into words. He had buried his share of comrades. Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unspoken parallels. Linza gestured toward the xenophone, her expression softening again. Play something for me. Something from your world. He hesitated. I'm not trained. What I did at Moon Quartz was instinct. Then trust it again, she urged, her eyes never leaving his face. Cade lowered himself onto the bench, his hands hovering uncertainly over the instrument's control surfaces. He closed his eyes, drawing from the same place he had 3 nights before. But this time he chose a melody, an old earth lullaby, one his mother used to hum when he was small, before wars and duty had stolen his innocence. The xenophone translated the tune into something ethereal, the notes floating like suspended diamonds in the air. When he opened his eyes, Linza stood only inches away. Her gaze shimmered, reflecting the starlight spilling in from the window. How do you do that? She whispered. How do you make it speak? I don't know, Cade admitted. I just feel it. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a plea. Then teach me. Show me how to feel. She slid onto the bench beside him, close enough that the warmth of her skin seeped through the fabric of his clothes. Her thigh brushed his, silver against worn cloth. Cade's chest tightened, breath-catching, but he didn't pull away. Linza's hand found his, guiding it to the xenophone's surface. Play with me, she murmured, her breath feathering against his cheek. They began a duet, her technical precision weaving with his raw emotion. The music filled the room, swelling into something greater than either could summon alone. The notes trembled with longing, loss, and something new hope. Cade felt her pulse through the instrument, her heart beating in time with his. By the time the last chord faded, silence hung thick and alive around them. Her fingers lingered on his hand. You feel things so deeply, she said softly, tracing the pale scars across his forearm. It's in your music, in your eyes. I want to understand it. Cade knew he should leave. She was nobility, bound by obligations he could never understand. He was a vagrant, a disgrace. But when her emerald gaze met his, luminous and unflinching, he found himself incapable of moving. Stay, she whispered. Teach me more. For the first time since the war, Cade felt the impossible tug of belonging. Dangerous, intoxicating, inevitable. The chime cut through the hush of Linza's apartment, sharp and insistent, a sound that didn't belong in the fragile stillness their music had left behind. Cade's hand froze on the xenophone, and Linza's silver fingers tightened around his. Her emerald eyes widened, a flicker of apprehension breaking through her calm. "My family's signal," she whispered, rising swiftly and clutching the sheet she had drawn around her shoulders. "They never come without notice." Before Cade could respond, the door slid open with a hiss of authority. 3 figures entered, their presence filling the space with icy weight. 2 males flanked a regal woman draped in a robe threaded with gemstones that shimmered like captured starlight. Her bearing radiated command, her gaze cool as a blade. "Mother," Linza said, her chin lifting with practiced defiance. "You should have called first." Celine Argentus's eyes flicked from her daughter to Cade, who stood half-dressed, his human form exposed under the sterile light. Her nostrils flared ever so slightly. "So it is true," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You've taken up with a human beggar." Cade stiffened, heat rushing to his face, but Linza stepped forward before he could speak. "This is Cade Mercer," she declared. "He's a musician of extraordinary talent." A beggar, one of the brothers Nevin. Cade guessed by his harder, colder features, interjected with a sneer. "He played for scraps at Moon Quartz. The recording has become a joke among the lower classes." Celine's gaze cut to Linza, unyielding. "You dishonor our house. The Vidian Compact is days away, and your union with Prefect Jorak's son was meant to seal our position for generations. And here you stand with this." Cade's jaw clenched. He had survived wars, poverty, and humiliation, but standing half-naked while nobles spat on him still stung deeper than he cared to admit. "I don't need your approval," he said quietly, but firmly. Nevin's lip curled. His hand brushed the device at his belt. "You'll take what we offer and leave, human. My sister will not throw away centuries of bloodline for your chaos." Cade stepped forward, his soldier's instincts sparking. "Or what? You'll force me? Violate galactic laws on sentient rights?" His eyes locked with Nevin's, steady, unflinching. "Try it." The room thickened with tension, but Linza moved swiftly to Cade's side, her silver hand closing around his wrist. "Enough. My choice is made." Cade stays. Her mother's expression hardened, voice sharp as breaking glass. "Then you are no daughter of mine. You will be cut off. No access to the conservatory. No position. No inheritance." Linza's throat tightened, but she didn't falter. "If that is the price of truth, then so be it." For the first time, a crack split Celine's composure. Her emerald eyes darkened with something between fury and disbelief. "You would choose this human over your family, over your people?" "I choose to evolve," Linza said, her voice steady. "To break free of walls we've built around ourselves. Cade and I can create something greater than tradition. If you cannot see that, then you've already lost what it means to be alive." The silence that followed rang louder than any note Cade had played. Finally, Celine's robe shimmered as she turned, gathering her sons with a sweep of authority. "You have until the signing ceremony," she said coldly. 3 days to come to your senses. After that, your choice will be permanent." Door sealed behind them, leaving the apartment in a suffocating hush. Cade exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I never meant to come between you and your family." Linza turned to him, eyes shining with unshed tears, but her jaw firm. "You have nothing to apologize for. This confrontation was inevitable. What matters is that I choose my own path." Cade pulled her close, feeling the tremor in her breath against his chest. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring only, but the battle had just begun. The night pressed heavy over Cerulean Port, its rain-slicked towers glowing faintly against the artificial stars. Cade's instincts prickled long before the ambush revealed itself. He and Linsa had left Theron's studio after hours of rehearsal, their new composition still echoing in his mind, a melody stitched from chaos and precision. But beneath the music pulsed something else uneasy. The streets were quieter than they should have been. Too quiet. Stay close, Cade murmured as they turned into a transit corridor. Linsa frowned, her silver features tense, but she obeyed. The air seemed to thicken, every shadow pregnant with intent. Then 3 figures detached from the darkness, armored in mismatched gear, their movements sharp and professional. Mercenaries. The leader, a reptilian saurian with scarred scales and a forked tongue, hissed, "The human comes with us. The female can go." Cade instinctively stepped in front of Linsa, his posture shifting from musician to soldier in a heartbeat. "I don't think so. Your choice," the saurian said. "Come conscious or unconscious. Either way, you're coming." Linsa clutched Cade's arm. "Cade, no." He cut her off with a low murmur. "Find Theron. Keep practicing. Don't stop." His eyes met hers, steady, burning with unspoken promise. "I'll come back." The mercenaries closed in. Cade raised his hands slowly, the gesture deliberate. "If I go quietly, she walks unharmed." The saurian's tongue flickered. "We only need you." Cade took 1 step forward, just enough to put Linsa behind him. His pulse thudded with rage and frustration, but he forced calm. He had survived worse. He had endured war. This would not break him. The mercs yanked a hood over his head, their claws rough against his skin. He caught Linsa's final words, choked with desperation. "I'll find you, Cade, whatever it takes." Then he was shoved into a transport, the world narrowing to the muffled sound of engines and the acrid stink of stale air. When the hood was finally torn away, Cade blinked against dim blue light. He was in a cell-smooth metal walls, no windows, a hum of energy cuffs biting into his wrists. A figure stepped forward, silver-skinned and cold-eyed. "Comfortable?" A man asked, voice clipped with disdain. "Not particularly," Cade said, testing the cuffs. "Hospitality's lacking." The man's lips twitched faintly. "I am Nevin Argentis, firstborn of House Argentis." "Charmed," Cade muttered. "You are an inconvenience," Nevin continued, circling him like a predator savoring the kill. "A distraction my sister cannot afford. The Vidian compact is too important to be jeopardized by some primitive fixation." "Primitive?" Cade's voice hardened. "Is that what you call it, what you can't understand?" Nevin's eyes narrowed. "You will remain here until after the ceremony. Then you'll be released with enough credits to buy your passage off this world. If you refuse..." He let the threat hang. Cade leaned back against the wall, meeting Nevin's stare with quiet defiance. "I've been threatened by better men than you, and I'm still here." The elder Argentian's composure cracked for an instant, a flash of anger darkening his emerald eyes. Then he turned and left, the door sealing behind him with a hiss. Silence pressed in. Cade closed his eyes, forcing his breath into steady rhythm, drawing on the discipline of his marine days. He would not break. Not here. Not now. Somewhere above, Linsa was waiting, and he had sworn to return. A scraping sound broke his focus. The door opened, and a different guard entered, a lanky amphibian with webbed hands carrying a tray of food. His large eyes lingered on Cade, uncertain. "You're the human who played at Moon Quartz," the guard said softly. "My mate was there. She hasn't stopped humming your melody since." Cade's heart stirred. Even here, buried under layers of contempt and politics, the music had reached someone. "Then help me," Cade said quietly, voice steady but urgent. "Help me reach her again. Help me show them what's possible." The guard hesitated, glancing back at the door. His gills fluttered nervously. Then, with a conspiratorial whisper, he nodded toward a small alcove in the corner. The waste disposal. Not monitored. Too foul for cameras. Wait until the night cycle. Cade suppressed the surge of relief, masking it beneath a neutral expression. Why tell me? The amphibian's lips curved in something close to a smile. Because some things are worth breaking rules for. When the guard slipped out, Cade sat alone again, pulse thrumming with renewed determination. He had been thrown into filth before. He could crawl through it again if it meant reaching Linsa, and reaching that stage. The Undercity awaited. The sanitation alcove reeked of chemicals and decay. Cade crouched in the shadows, the hum of the energy cuffs still ringing in his wrists. Using the sharpened edge of the food tray, he worried the bolts free one by one, each metallic ping sounding like a gunshot in the stillness. When the last came loose, he pulled the panel aside and stared into a tunnel no wider than his shoulders. The stench hit him first, sharp and sour, burning his throat. He took a breath, steadying himself. Freedom rarely came wrapped in silk. Sliding inside, he pulled the panel back into place, sealing the cell behind him. The darkness swallowed him whole. He crawled, knees scraping against slime-slick metal, hands sinking into foul sludge that clung like tar. Time stretched into a blur of rank air and aching limbs. He had crawled through worse in the war trenches, filled with smoke and blood, but this felt endless. Then, at last, the passage widened into a maintenance tunnel, lit by faint amber strips that pulsed like the heartbeat of some subterranean beast. Cade pushed himself to his feet, chest heaving, and listened. The Undercity was alive, faint echoes of vendors shouting, machinery grinding, voices murmuring in alien tongues. He followed the sound, weaving through the maze until he emerged into a ramshackle market. Stalls leaned against corroded walls, hawking stolen tech, dried meats of questionable origin, and glowing vials of narcotics. The crowd was a patchwork of species, scaled, feathered, tentacled, all of them hardened by life beneath the city. Eyes turned toward Cade, dirty, ragged, unmistakably human. He ignored them, pushing through until a sound froze him in place. Music. It floated across the market, weaving above the din. Crystalline notes, familiar and haunting. Cade's gaze swept the crowd until he saw him. Thurin Lux, the Luminari, stood at the center of a small circle, a portable xenophone cradled in his luminous hands. He met Cade's eyes mid-phrase. His fingers didn't falter, but the melody shifted, bending toward something new. A signal. Cade caught it and moved. He slipped through a side alley as Theron's tune disguised his departure. Minutes later, the Luminari appeared, folding the instrument against his chest. "I thought I might find you down here," he said. His silver eyes scanned Cade, taking in the filth, the bruises, the set of his jaw. "Linsa has been frantic. How did you know?" Cade asked, voice rasped raw. "Because I know Nevin," Theron replied grimly. "He would never soil his hands with blood, not when a cage will do. Come, she's waiting." The path out of the Undercity wound through tunnels reeking of rust and mold. Cade followed, every step renewing his purpose. He would not let Nevin silence him. Not now. Not when he had something worth fighting for. Theron's studio glowed amber when they arrived, its polished walls a stark contrast to the grime clinging to Cade's skin. The door slid open, and Linsa burst out, her silver form radiant even in the dim light. She collided with him, arms wrapping around his shoulders with desperate strength. "You smell terrible," she whispered into his neck, voice breaking. Cade laughed, pulling her tighter despite the stench. "Waste tunnels aren't known for their perfume." She pulled back, emerald eyes searching his face as if to memorize him anew. "Are you hurt? Did they I'm fine, he said, brushing her cheek with a dirt-smeared hand. Your brother just wanted me out of the way. Her jaw tightened. Nevin, I should have known. She tugged him toward the washroom. Clean up. I brought clothes. We have work to do. An hour later, scrubbed raw and dressed in deep blue garments that fit as though made for him, Cade joined her in the studio's heart. Two Xenophones stood facing each other, crystalline arcs glowing faintly. Thurin hovered by a console, tension lining his luminous features. We have 18 hours, he said. The compact begins at noon. I've secured your place on the program, a cultural demonstration, framed as unity through art. The committee approved. But Nevin will not stop here. Then we'll be ready, Linsa said, her eyes flashing as she took her seat. She gestured for Cade. I've been working on something while you were gone. It blends human emotional arcs with Argentian structure. Let me show you. She began to play, the notes precise, yet trembling with an undercurrent of feeling. Cade lowered himself opposite her, listening, letting the melody settle into his bones. When his turn came, he added his own voice rough, imperfect, but alive. Their music collided, then entwined, weaving into something that made the very air quiver. Linza's cheeks flushed, her eyes bright. Yes, she breathed. That's it. Thurin stood silent at the edge of the room, watching as the human beggar and the Argentian air forged something new. For the first time in centuries, the Xenophone sang a song that carried both chaos and order, heart and structure. And for the first time in years, Cade Mercer felt not like an outcast, but like a man who belonged. The grand hall of harmony shimmered with prismatic light. Its vaulted ceilings hung with crystalline chandeliers that cast shifting rainbows across rows of alien dignitaries. Representatives from 12 star systems filled the space in a hum of expectation, their ceremonial robes gleaming, their jeweled insignia glittering. At the heart of the hall stood the signing table for the Vidian Compact, an alliance meant to secure peace, trade, and the preservation of ancient traditions. Backstage, Cade adjusted the midnight blue suit Celine had provided. It was finer than anything he had worn in years, the silver trim matching Linza's gown. He tugged at the collar, his hands trembling as he tuned the Xenophone Thurin had placed before him. Every muscle in his body ached with anticipation, and something more dangerous fear. You look terrified, Thurin observed, his voice dry. The Luminari stood resplendent in flowing robes of his people, his Xenophone slung across his chest. Good. It means your soul knows what's at stake. Music demands more courage than war. In battle, you risk your life. Here, you risk your truth. Cade gave a sharp laugh. That's supposed to help? Before Thurin could answer, Linsa swept into the chamber. Her gown shimmered like living metal, flowing silver that clung and shifted as she moved. Emerald eyes met Cade's, and the panic in his chest eased, replaced by the steady thrum of something older, deeper. You're ready, she said simply. Not sure I'll ever be, Cade admitted. Her hand brushed his, grounding him. Then we'll be ready together. But the calm fractured as Nevin strode in, flanked by officials from the cultural ministry. His silver features were rigid, fury simmering in his emerald eyes. This charade ends here, he hissed. I will not allow my sister to shame our people before the galaxy. Step aside, Nevin, Celine said, appearing behind Linsa. She wore her matriarchal regalia, her jeweled crown glinting. I approve this performance. You overstep, Nevin snapped. The council already knows of Cade Mercer's past. Ask him about Proxima 4. Ask him how many civilians died under his command because he disobeyed orders. The words slammed into Cade like a blade. For a moment, the hall vanished, replaced by fire and smoke. A civilian ship's hull torn open by raiders that hadn't been raiders at all. 23 dead. The ghosts pressed against him, suffocating. Linsa turned to him, confusion and pain in her eyes. Is it true? Cade's throat tightened. He forced himself to meet her gaze. Yes, I thought they were under attack. I made the wrong call. People died. I've carried that weight every day since. Nevin's smile was cold. And this is the man you would exalt before the combat? A dishonored soldier? A beggar? Silence thickened, the tension almost unbearable. Then Linsa stepped forward, voice ringing clear. We have all made mistakes, brother. The difference is whether we hide from them or transform them. Cade has transformed his. That is why he belongs here. That is why we belong here. The announcer's voice boomed into the hall. A special cultural presentation, Harmony of Worlds, performed by Linsa Argentes and Cade Mercer. Nevin lunged, but Celine's voice cut through like ice. Enough. I have heard their music. It deserves an audience. Stand down. For a heartbeat, Nevin's rage blazed. Then he retreated, his face carved from stone. Cade's legs felt leaden as he followed Linsa onto the stage. Hundreds of alien eyes fixed on him, some skeptical, some hostile. At a front table, Prefect Jorok sat stiffly, his son glaring at Linsa with proprietary disdain. Cade forced himself to breathe. He placed his hands on the xenophone. The first note trembled, hesitant, like a question. Linsa answered, her tones clean and perfect. Slowly, their music built a dialogue of regret and renewal. Cade poured his shame into the melody, no longer hiding it, but transforming it into something that could be carried, reshaped. Linsa wove around him, her structure lifting his chaos, her precision giving his grief form. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the duet deepened, the alien instrument resonating with emotions many had long forgotten. Their music rose and broke like a tide loss and defiance, longing and hope fused into harmony. It was raw, imperfect, yet alive in a way no engineered tradition could be dot as the final movement swelled, the one they had created in their most private moment. Cade felt the hall itself lean forward. Even Nevin, standing at the edge, had lost his sneer. His face caught an unwilling fascination. The last chord rang out, shimmering into silence. For 3 breaths, no one moved. Then, from the back, applause began soft, tentative. It grew, swelling like a storm, until the hall thundered with it. Even the stoic Argentian delegates rose to their feet. Jorok himself stood, his expression unreadable, but far from hostile. Cade rose, his hand trembling as he reached for Linsa's. She took it without hesitation, her smile radiant. Together they bowed, human beggar and Argentian heir. Backstage, Celine waited, her eyes brighter than Cade had ever seen them. Well done, she said simply. You have shown us a path forward, not abandoning tradition, but enriching it. And Nevin? Linsa asked. He has lost more tonight than he understands, Celine replied. Thurin clapped Cade's shoulder. I told you that night in the rain. You have a gift. Now the galaxy knows it too. Later, on a quiet balcony, Linsa stood with Cade, silver skin glowing in the twin moon's light. He looked at her, heart unsteady. The first night we met, you asked if I would play for you. Just for you. I never answered. Her emerald eyes locked with his. And will you? For the rest of my life, Cade whispered. Her reply came not in words, but in a kiss, their harmony sealing itself, not in music this time, but in the undeniable truth of 2 souls that had finally found resonance.